Our next speaker is from Greece on the implementing resilience in the port domain. Our speaker is Petros Pallis, a postdoc teaching fellow, Department of the Maritime Studies, University of Piraeus. So, Pallis, please take the floor.
Dear colleagues, it is always a constructive experience to participate in an international conference, even it is virtually and by distance. My name is Petros Pallis, and I'm teaching fellow at the University of Piraeus and the Hellenic Open University. And today, the paper that I'm going to present is in the framework of our current research in a project which is under Hellenic Foundation of Research and Development. The title of the paper is Implementing Resilience in Port Domain, Evidence from Greece. Our initial aim is to construct a resilience framework in ports under the necessity to predict risk and deliver a plan to restore normality in the shortest possible time and in terms of value for money. The goal of a resilience design a system is to absorb the consequences of violent events, to recover and return to normality and to adapt, they transform into something more resilient. In the port domain, resilience dynamic and measurement tools should be adapted quickly and successfully. Equally important is the mechanism of recovery from a disaster in ports. Continuity of work should also be ensured without any delays from any disaster. In the port domain, there is a differentiation regarding the vulnerability of separate maritime networks. For example, disruptions at the hub will mostly impact maritime shipping networks. Disruptions at the gateway will mostly impact the hinterland. Logistical networks are also vulnerable to disruptions impacting one element of the supply chain and the connected activities that are upstream and downstream. We thought if we would like to find empirical evidence from Greek port market, we should investigate the major ports in Greece. These, of course, are the ports of the Greek 10T network, the Trans-European network. The 5 core and the 20 comprehensive Greek ports belongs to the OEM, Orient East Med corridor, which is one of the 9 corridors of the 10T network in Europe. Half of them are located in the mainland of the country and the other half on 13 islands, some with extremely heterogeneity. We utilized the so-called key informant method, in which the questionnaire is sent to the person with the most comprehensive knowledge on the survey subject and thus ensuring the reliability of the answers. In the survey, the key informant was chosen to be the president of each authority. We collected data from 20 out of 25 ports in total, which can be considered as satisfactory on the basis of the method adopted. Our empirical evidence through our first question regarding the most significant risk priorities that Greek port undertaking is as follows. Environmental damage is undoubtedly the top risk concern of the sector. Clearly stated the need for emergency plans that should be in maturity in order for ports to handle with significantly stated environmental concerns. There are 2 main priorities regarding human accidents in our sample regarding the major Greek ports: injury, death of an employee, second risk priority, and port user death at the port area, 6th risk priority. Ship damage is prioritized as the third one, which is critical for ports, highlighting the connection between ships and ports in maritime sector. Accordingly, a large number of ports prioritize equipment damage in one of their top ranking answers, meaning that these ports should be working to improve their equipment and assets efficiency. Security damages, such as terrorism acts, theft incidents, smuggling, etc., are at the top concerns of the sector, especially during the last 2 decades. Damages from natural causes is a growing concern in port areas. Climate change is under great importance since the majority of investigated ports are located in islands or near of urban areas. Ports need to address it in a immense way in order to ensure that the port is viewed as a positive force in the local community. System failure and building construction damage are ranked in 8th and 9th place, respectively, since ports need to prevent damage and losses for assets that mainly are under their ownership and avoiding in that way the declining of their capital value. Finally, loss of cargo goods and container damage are ranked in 10th and 11th place, mainly to underline the heterogeneity of the sample, since many of the investigated ports are not operated container services and only few of them are bulk cargo terminals. Regarding risk incidents for Greek ports, answering the question, how often have any of the following accidents occurred in your port in the last 3 years? Almost each port, 75% of the following risks: injury, death of an employee, port user, death, loss of cargo goods, and security damage are not reporting any incident. In our sample, 20 ports answer the current question. The following categories such as system failure, building construction damage, environmental damage, equipment damage, ship damage, and damage from natural cause are reported in double-digit number of ports, 50% to 70%, as a rare more than 10 incidents per year frequency. Additionally, risk incidents such as system failure, building construction damage, equipment damage, ship damage, and security damage are reported as a few, more than 10 incidents per year, and or often more than 100 incidents per year frequency, with the most frequent of all the equipment damage, highlighting the emerged need of ports to underline procedures and measurement in order to minimize the mentioned risk. While it is generally accepted that the overall level of maritime safety and security has improved over the years, further improvements are still desirable. Evidently, much of maritime safety and security policies have been developed after serious accidents. In addition, the port industry has begun to move from a reactive to a proactive approach, and therefore towards more complex risk prevention plans and tools. In this set of questions, it was specified that an overall risk prevention plan has been developed by 72.7% of the respondents, although a number of particular risk prevention plans have been developed, including mainly a security damage prevention plan, an environmental damage prevention plan, and a damage from natural cause prevention plan. All these prevention plans are updated annually, while these plans are significantly tested in practice. Only security damage and environmental damage prevention plans have been developed with external cooperation with other authorities, while again, mainly security damage and environmental damage prevention plans are accumulated to persons that are responsible for their schedule and implementation. Finally, it was indicated by the 27.3% of the responders that there is no formal risk prevention plan implemented at the moment. However, later in the same section, it was noted that they are planning to develop an overall holistic risk prevention plan, as well as specific ones for system failure, building construction damage, environmental damage, equipment damage, ship damage, security damage, and damage from natural cause. In the next question, the reasons identified as the most significant for not preparing overall or specific plans are other priorities and cost. While no need was identified for container damage and equipment damage and ship damage and loss of cargo goods were considered to be outside of the authority of the port. Based on the empirical evidence regarding prevention plans and resilience concept in Greek ports, the application of relevant methods could lead to strengthening of their operation in case of their expressed necessity. Any disturbance in a port could be either natural or man-made, so the application of the resilience method should be able to be quantified and applied to a full range of potential disturbances. Taking into account possible disturbances and considering the answers of the Greek ports, we observe that in some ports there are prevention mechanisms of some mentioned disturbances and risks, but in the case that a disturbance occurs and the prevention mechanism does not prevent it, then there should be a process of restoring the system to the condition before the disorder. Moreover, the method should be constantly developed and updated, taking into account any new disturbance that may occur, such as the recent COVID-19 pandemic. The velocity of this recovery could be quantified to have a potential framework for recovery methods using the PRI, port resilience risk, more specifically using yes and no answers list, where its list will include on one of the following categories: documents for identifying risk and threats, risk assessment, infrastructure resources, security and risk management, continuation of works for infrastructure and facilities, internal communication of the port authorities, communication with external stakeholders, location of crisis coordination, and critical documents and financing. Then, based on the number of yes answers, a scoreboard can be created where it will quantify the resilience index in each of the above 8 categories to the following percentages: low, 0 to 49%, medium, 50 to 75%, and high, 76 to 100%. Taking as a potential framework the above process, Greek ports will be able to have a resilience mechanism in addition to a prevention mechanism. Having now quantified data, they will be able to consider which areas will need support so that they can minimize the losses that will be created in any physical or man-made disorder, since the above 8 indicators would apply to all potential disorders as a generalized method of resilience. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Pallis, for an interesting presentation. Now, can I ask the floor? Is there any? Yes.
Thanks for the very interesting sharing. It's really impressive work. So my question is, the port resilience index is very useful to look at the resilience level of individual ports. But the things is always changing in reality, and the things may dynamically change over time. So from the port view, they need to have the capacity to recover to be resilient. But for the vessels who are visiting the ports, how we can inform them based on the resilience index? Can they be more real time and inform the vessels about the port they are going to call, whether they should reroute, and what's the so-called wait time they are experiencing due to the disruption at port? You have different level of the disruptions, right? So do you have any study for that or any recommendation for this to benefit the shipping operator, the vessel side? Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. If you can hear me.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for your question. Yes, this is our first work that we are doing for the port risk index and the resilience in ports. As we mentioned at the paper, the current status of resilience in Greek port domain, it's quite low. It's not so mature. From now on and the next few months, we're going to go further and deeper in these questions and the interviews with the 25 ports in Greece, in order to understand how port risk index as a resilience mechanism can work with this situation. So, of course, one of our things that we are going to examine is the shipping, how ships reacts to this resilience, and how is this situation regarding ports and ships regarding in this resilience index. As you can see, is that the third risk in our sample is the ship damage. So it's quite important for port authorities in Greece, damages from ships entering in Greek ports, and especially in these ports, in those ports that are in islands, ports that are passenger terminals and are in islands in winter time and all these things. So this is important for us to examine and in deeper way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pallis. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.